I just wanted to be a simple guy, simple engineer. That's it. No business. I mean, I have no idea about the business. I have no idea what does it mean to sell the company. In fact, 67 million valuation. I just do what I need to do. I just do what
Simple.
I like, what I love. That's it. Now I make joke why we succeed. I mean, because we didn't knew how hard it will be. I mean, if we knew, we maybe never started that company.
Space is humanity's greatest laboratory. Defense is democracy's strongest shield. And today, in workshops, in laboratories, in startups, a new generation rises, not to observe history, but to write it, where every innovation above drives progress below, where every breakthrough in defense preserves our freedom to create. Behind every breakthrough stands a founder with a story. Now these stories emerge to light the path for those who follow. Welcome to Rockets and Radars.
Hey, Vytenis, I'm super fascinated about your journey. Especially about your journey where you have grown from a university project into a global player, being acquired. It's a huge story in the European space industry that I think is very underrepresented. Like, not many people know about you, unfortunately. So let's hope that more people will know about you as a person, but also as a story that you have gone through. So let's get into the whole story, both on a personal and company level. So in one sentence, for people that don't know, what is NanoAvionics?
NanoAvionics is a new space provider at nano satellite level and small satellite level.
Okay, let's get back into your personal journey, even before everything started. So you came from aerospace engineering at Vilnius University to mechatronics to Kaunas University. How important was education towards what came next?
It was very important, actually. I could add few details here. I was studying my bachelor's at Vilnius University of Technology at the Aviation Institute, and I had a good chance to go for Erasmus program to Stuttgart. So I spent 1 year in Stuttgart. It was, I think, a huge kind of pivoting point in my career and in my understanding of engineering. Well, it's German school. I mean, it's huge traditions of aviation, of aerospace and space technology. So I would say that was very significant, an important aspect in my life. Later, I started to study my master's at Kaunas University of Technology. It was mechatronics and robotics. And I had a chance there to go for internship to NASA Ames Center to California.
That's how.
That was another very important aspect. So I would say, all in all, accumulating this kind of the experience made me appear where I am today. So
what's interesting? You are the third founder that went through NASA Ames on this podcast already, which is crazy. I think that was something.
Place. It's a wonderful place. I was there spending my summer of 2012. As I remember, Pete Warden was a director of the center. I mean, really like open-minded guy and very interesting person, general of Air Force and, Cold War stuff. So huge history there behind the center, and really great staff. And it was really encouraging and inspiring.
What happened once you returned to Europe from NASA Ames?
Together with my colleague Laurinas, we went to Ames Center, back in 2012. And I was there for the topic related to small satellite propulsion systems. So, monopropellant, some propellant for hydrazine, so to say, kind of ecologic stuff, because hydrazine, as we know, is really like, toxic thing. My colleague was working on thermal protection materials, so re-entry vehicles, very interesting stuff. And we had a great supervisor, Mark Murbach, who was really inspiring guy. And we were spending a lot of time, so to say, on rocket archaeology, Cold War history, because we're from Lithuania. We have, some relationship with old Cold War history, etc. And we were having interesting discussions about, in general, the history, how everything has been started, Korolev, Werner von Braun, other guys who were inventing, rockets and missiles and rocket engines and so on and so on. And it appeared so that in 2013, I mean, next year after our internship, there was an anniversary of transatlantic flight of 2 Lithuanian pilots. They crossed Atlantic back in 1933, and we started, what could be the interesting event to commemorate this, event after 80 years. And well, spontaneously, we came up with the idea that we could launch a first Lithuanian CubeSat. By then, we were introduced with the guys from NanoRacks, who are employing International Space Station for commercial payloads. And by then, I think they have already launched a batch of 1-unit CubeSats. Some university from Vietnam, Kickstarter backed program made by the guys who later became Spire. The guys like Planet Labs, and they offered us for a good price to launch a first Lithuanian CubeSat if we involve Lithuanian universities like Vilnius University, Kaunas University of Technology. So that was, I think, our strong impulse to dig deeper into the CubeSat technology as a whole, right? Not into the components, like, for example, in my case, propulsion systems or some other stuff. So we've got some really generalistic knowledge how to steer such kind of the programs, starting with idea and finishing with the real operations in orbit. So that was, I would say, that was the main impulse. I mean, the right people we met back then, the right circumstances, knowing nanoracks and access to space by then was really hard. I mean, the prices decreased through the decade really drastically, but back then it was like crazy expensive. I mean, around 100,000 euro for 1 kilogram. So it was like crazy money. I mean, impossible, right? For a university project to spend, like 200K just on the launch, not speaking about the components of the CubeSat itself.
Okay, so you launched around a year since you started to work on Lithuanica Sat-1?
Yes.
That's the name of the satellite?
We started to work on Lithuanica Sat-1 back in 2012. The initial plan was to launch it in 2013, but I don't know if you remember, by the end of 2013, when our launch has been scheduled, there was a major leak on the ISS, cooling system, some ammonia stuff, etc. So the launch was postponed to 2014 February. Well, not a big issue, but
symbolism is still there.
Yeah. So it slipped like a couple of months forward. But finally it was successful.
Did you already know back then that you wanted to turn this experience and revelation into a company?
Actually, no. We never thought about the company. We were engineers, young engineers, doing some careers, in oil and gas and some metrology stuff, doing some design engineering as a mechanical or mechatronic engineers. As a side project, we had this CubeSat thing, and we were students by then, and we were very passionate about that. So I would say we never thought to build business. We were just looking for the way how we can continue these activities, how we can continue being involved into these activities, because it's crazy interesting. I mean, launching a satellite is just, it's crazy, right? So after the successful mission back in 2014, around the summer, I think around July, until the decay of the satellites, until they re-entered, we had no idea what we're going to do. Laurynas, myself, some other guys were thinking that maybe we will continue studies, I don't know, somewhere in California, right? In one of those nice universities, maybe somewhere in UK. My passion was in general engines, like rocket engines, like jet engines. So my passion in general. Propulsion systems. But after the mission, it was really intense 2 years, right? We started to, suddenly it's over, right? The mission is successful, 100%. We have images from space. We have communication, successful communication, program is 100% done. So what's next? And you suddenly feel some kind of emptiness inside, right? Because it was really intense period, and suddenly you have to think what's next. So we just sat on the couch in the ground station, room, and we started to think what's next. And suddenly another guy, Linus, who became a co-founder of NanoAvionics, came and said, okay, there is a agency of innovation, science and technology, in Lithuania. they will be giving away grants for R&D commercialization. We're working already with Vilnius University. You have to have some certain parameters like joint development with university, some R&D stuff, some potential for commercialization. And we said, why not? I mean, this gives us a very nice opportunity to continue digging deeper into CubeSat world, right? Into new space world. Let's give it a chance. So we were just thinking either academia or other opportunities like business, like funding, like fundraising, to continue this interesting journey. And that's it. I mean, it was like opportunity out of the blue. Okay, let's take it. I mean, the grant by itself was really, really small. It was 21,000 euro, but
For start, it sounds like everything, right?
yeah, it created for us a good precedent to dig deeper. I mean, we've got that funding from Agency of Innovation, Science and Technology. It's somehow like make our efforts like legitimate, meaning that we're interesting. We have a potential for the business. We're kind of creating good technology, and that was further step. We made a decision. We started to think about the company because one of the requirements was to create a startup, a company, and we were so much focused onto what we are going to do. Suddenly we go into the bank because we need to open the bank account, and the bank worker is asking what's the name of the company, and okay, that's a good question. So we were so much focused on what we want to do on that vision, we forgot to think about the name of the company. And Laurinas, one of the co-founders, said, all right, let's do NanoAvionics. And we said, yeah, it's a good name. It's a really good name.
Usually it's the opposite. Usually founders spend a lot of time on thinking like what should be the name, but this was very spontaneous. I love that.
Yeah. We were so much focused on the problem, that we forgot some details like the name of the company.
Back then you were focused on 3 core technologies from start, on integrated CubeSat buses, propulsion systems, and TT&C solutions, right? Why did you have this broad spectrum?
When you speak with your clients, after all, right? In general, everybody know that they will need a platform, they will need a hardware, they will need software. I mean, they will need product, right? They will need something tangible. But when you're speaking with investors, you have to sell the vision. So what is the vision? Where is innovation? I mean, from the techie guys, it's for techie guys, it's really difficult sometimes to have this kind of the grand vision, breakthrough technology, because in reality, nobody knows whether this technology will be breakthrough or not, whether it will disrupt the market or not. I mean, you will find it out a bit later, right? So one of the core ideas, of the innovation was to put 3 different subsystems on one single PCB. So we were thinking about a flight computer, main communication system, and attitude control and determination system, ADCS. Why we were thinking so? Because around 2014, everybody were very, very hot about the 1 unit or 3 unit CubeSats. It's a future, satellite must be small and tiny, and payloads are going, really complex. And electronics is becoming really integral. So, Spire, Planet Labs, other companies, everybody were building their huge business cases on 3 unit CubeSat. So why not? I mean, let's optimize it further. Let's make as much room for the payload as possible. Let's focus on 1 unit CubeSat instead of, let's say, okay, in 1 unit CubeSat in 10 centimeters cube, you can fit around 5 different subsystems, 5, let's say, PCBs, right? So instead of 3 PCBs, which is your main avionics of the vehicle itself, let's make it 1. So meaning that instead of 1/3 of the cube available for the payload, let's make it 2/3, right? So that was our innovation. I mean, a higher level of integration, etc. Because everybody's betting on the CubeSat, right? Back then. Another one thing we were working on the propulsion system. Why propulsion? Of course, historically, I mean, I'm interested in propulsion, but another reason was that we were thinking seriously about the swarms of the satellites. If you want to fly in formation, you need to have a propulsion system in order to synchronize the constellation, timing and everything, orbit rebooting, and so on and so on. So propulsion was another one angle to attract investors. And initiatives by European Space Agency back then were very, very strong towards replacing hydrogen, because hydrogen is a bit,
The sustainability part, yeah.
nasty stuff, yes, sustainability, etc. So I would say these two things were the main drivers to attract further investments. And on these two things, we were building the vision of the company. I mean, innovation, productization. It evolved. Something was forgotten. Something, was developed. Something was not, etc., etc. But finally, it was the main, let's say, impulse, right, from the hardware and software perspective to start the production product line of NanoAvionics.
Now it totally makes sense. Now it falls into one. Okay, cool. Back then, did you have any commercial customers yet at that stage?
What we learned quite soon into the running the company, we learned that the market entry barrier, is really tough and hard for the space industry. In order to sell something for the client, you have to have launched something before. You have to have flight heritage. You have to show that you know how to operate the mission in orbit. It was really, really hard, question of the chicken and egg. I think first client came around 2000, maybe 17, much later, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a huge defense company from Turkey. Thanks for those guys, to trust us and to give us, and like inception to into the business. It was hard. Maybe okay, maybe not 3 years later, but like 2 years later, something. But it wasn't like instantly. We started with a technology idea, and we've got first investors which were betting on some innovation, and that this market is going to grow, but not on the commercial, traction. We haven't had commercial traction at first, and we struggled actually. The market was really, really harsh. I mean, until we have, so to say, invented M6P, right, 6-unit platform, which gives the platform by itself with all of the logistics around as a product instead of the components. We were really struggling to get into business.
Okay, two things. One thing, you mentioned investment, so let's get into that. In May 2015, you got your first, let's call it seed investment, 200,000 euros
Yes,
from Practica Capital. How
correct.
did you convince them to invest for a space startup in Lithuania? Like space back then was still very new, right, in Europe? So curious, how did you get them over?
It was a bit crazy. I mean, Lithuania is kind of famous for lasers, for fintech, for some IT stuff. I mean, we have really great unicorns here, around Baltics, which are doing great things, in IT world. But suddenly hardware and space hardware. So just imagine we fundraise, we go to speak with the guys, and we're telling them, hey guys, we're going to build a nice business producing satellites here in Lithuania. So, first impression was like, eyebrows like this. Are you guys seriously? This is Lithuania. So Practica Capital, actually, yeah, really big thanks to them to believe in our ideas. I mean, there were some techie guys behind them. We had thorough analysis, and documentation, and then drawings, and business plans, and some innovation factor, and similar kind of stuff. So they believed us, and they decided to invest. And actually, it was quite fast turnaround. I mean, we were speaking with a lot of investors here in Lithuania, and I think we were one of the true first startups here in this region which was betting on hardware first, and then
Yeah.
firmware. So it wasn't easy. But yeah, we were working a lot, and Linus, the other co-founder, he was a really business-driven guy, and he's coming, from the PwC, Deloitte, the kind of stuff, so he knows business. He have a sense, what is investment, how to fundraise. And we're young guys. I mean, like, I don't know, we just finished university or still going through the masters, or some of us even bachelors. And nobody really knows what to do. And he was like really business, like savvy guy. Who helped to steer through, to navigate through that world of venture capital and similar stuff. So it was Linus' achievement to attract, well, investors, serious investors who finally invested, well, tangible amount of money. I mean, 200K. I mean, 10 years ago, it was, wow, it was big money.
What is the biggest learning that you got from this very first fundraising?
I would say we maybe underestimated the productization question. It took longer. It was much more expensive than we anticipated. After all, this is a space product. I mean, later radiation stuff. I mean, sun goes in cycles, and all of those CubeSats. I mean, 10 years ago, we start entire industry back then is going around the minimum of the solar activity. Going towards 2020, the sun is getting more active. I mean, we have much more radiation issues across the industry, starting with CubeSats, finishing with Starlink satellites, finishing with really serious satellites from NASA and ESA, right? So it was a lot of stuff. But I would say, yeah, two things to answer your question. We underestimated how much cash we will need, but of course, we were compensating that cash through our hard work. I mean, we were like no life kind of guys. I mean, Saturdays, Sundays, our girlfriends, which are our wives today, complaining that, guys, you are crazy. I mean, you're not living, you're not, socializing. I mean, we hate you. So this is one thing, but they were patient and they helped us. I mean, families. And second thing, which appeared later, we underestimated the effects of the nature, of the physics, of the radiation. So at some point, we had some good lessons learned. I mean, we managed to cover everything. I mean, we managed to navigate through those things, but sun suddenly becomes really, really active. And we are kind of speaking with serious customers, which are already not the maybe startups, but like primes of the defense industry. And suddenly we understand that there must be some certain reliability of that hardware. And we are coming from the world, from the new space world, where everybody expecting this hardware to be cheap, to be fast, to be, like easy accessible. And finally, they realize that they are building their business cases on this kind of the hardware, meaning that it must be reliable, right? It must be working for years in orbit. So that was, I would say, second interesting thing related with to technology.
Okay, super interesting. Now I would love to get back a bit when you mentioned the first customer from Turkey. Could you give us an insight? How did you actually get them on board? Like, who reached out first, and how were the first talks, and how did you actually convince them? It's very hard to get the first customer, right?
It's very hard. I don't know if you remember, but there was a program, QB50, by for Karman Institute. QB50 was FP7 framework funded program to investigate lower thermosphere. So European Commission is funding the 70% of the program, the launch, right? Development of the CubeSats from different countries across the globe. I mean, literally. From Canada to Africa to Australia, Lithuania, you name it, everybody's there. QB50 meaning that all of us are building 50 CubeSats, 50 sensors to investigate lower thermosphere. So, some spectrometers, Langmuir probes, mass detectors, whatever, aurora related stuff, plasma related stuff, etc. So fundamental physics program, right? Within this community, I mean, von Karman Institute from Brussels, right, from Belgium, they are kind of kicking off the CubeSat community across the world. So the project took like years, like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, something like that. And when people started, like 90% of them were thinking that it will be easy to build a CubeSat by themselves.
Okay.
It kicked off the industry, right? It really helped the guys like Space, like ISIS, like Lightspace, right? So they were there already with their CubeSats launched, like, I don't know, around 2005, 2006, something. And they are jumping into the project like an industry, like the suppliers, but the hardware is expensive, right? Nobody knows why yet. So many of them, including us, they want to build their own hardware because they cannot afford it. Now we understand that this logic is not really the right logic. You understand later why some certain things are so expensive, until you haven't learned that lesson. And this in general kicked off some kind of the community. And that customer from Turkey, they were one of those, organizations who suddenly realized that in this short time frame, they will not going to develop their own communication system, their own computer, their own stuff. So they started to look where they can buy it. And it appeared so that they appear on our, on our HubSpot account, on our pipeline, and my colleague, which is responsible for sales, he's reaching out to them and offering some hardware from our side, because we already have some experience with Lithuanica Set 1, meaning that we have flight heritage already, and they buy from us, first PCBs of that flight hardware. So yeah, that was
Again, opportunity, you caught it. Boom.
yeah.
Simple. Nah, and very good timing, I would say, in this case. Super nice. Okay, so if we get back into the timeline, we're around 2016. You were also part of developing Lithuanica Sat 2 back then with your propulsion system. I'm very curious about still the university collaboration. You apparently stay in touch, and you were using the tech that you built in-house to help them to get into the second launch. Is that right?
In fact, Lithuanica Sat 2 should have to be the first Lithuanian CubeSat, because Lithuanica Sat 2 was a part of the CubeSat program, right? I was telling you, right? But it happened so that, we have delays with Lithuanica Sat 2. I mean, some launch delays, some, von Karman Institute realized that many of the participants are not there with schedules. So, year after year, we have delays and delays and delays. And suddenly we have an opportunity at NASA Ames to launch one unit CubeSat. So we kind of take that opportunity, which appears in between, in the middle of our road, because we see that until we launch Lithuanica Sat 2, maybe, it will still take a few years, and this is a good opportunity. We have to take it. So we launched Lithuanica Sat 1. QB50 project is ongoing. We have successful mission of Lithuanica Sat 1. It decays after successful, mission accomplishment. And we continue with QB50 program with Lithuanica Sat 2. For university, that program was very interesting because it was involving some fundamental, problems from the chemistry perspective, from the physics. It's a propulsion system, it's ammonium dinitramide, some, catalyst development, some, thruster development. We work closely with ECAPS, with Swedish company, which is providing to us, the propellant, the replacement for hydrazine. They are helping us to do some experiment on the thruster, on the catalyst. We get some funding from Lithuanian Science Council. So that program is kind of very interesting, involving some really fundamental engineering development. And therefore, it was very good topic for Vilnius University, because Vilnius University is a fundamental university. And we go there, a bit of the funding from the university, a bit of the funding from here. And it perfectly aligns with the commercialization program of the NanoAvionics itself. We see in the future a propulsion system of this kind as a very nice, product, because constellations are coming. They will need propulsion. So again, some circumstances, successful circumstances, we glue together some, different stuff. And here we go. We have Lithuanica Sat 2 in orbit.
Again, similarly to how you pick your name. Boom, boom, spontaneous. Let's take the opportunity. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in June 2017, you also landed 3.2 million euro in funding from Intellectus, Lithuania, and EU's Horizon 2020 program.
Correct.
Can you give us a bit of a glimpse? How did you get this amount of cash, and what would be your biggest learnings? Because this is a public funding, right? So the dynamics are totally opposite from getting a private investor. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
Well, with SME2 funding, right, Horizon 2020, we became kind of rock stars here in the region. I think we were the first company in general from the space industry to get this kind of the funding. We've got funding from SME1. SME1 is like a tiny grant, some technology, some business study, like, few tens of thousands of euros. But after successful first phase, we submit for SME2 and we get, I think, 1.6 million. So it was really nice funding. I mean, from the European Commission, it gives us huge visibility because, I mean, we are kind of rock stars, right? We get this kind of the funding. Another one, very similar program, I would say, like from the technical perspective, similar, from the from bureaucratic perspective, Intellectus, right? Which is national funding from the Lithuanian perspective. And we've got there another like 1.6 something. And commercialization, some further R&D development. We were very lucky to, to get that funding, and it gives us some like new level, new speed, right, of the funding, because, previously we've got some funding in the region of hundreds of K, and suddenly we've got funding well above few millions. It helped us really to expand the team, facilities, productization, some products, and it gives us a huge boost, to go much faster as ever before.
Team wise, what is your approach into hiring? Everybody has a different style. I'm very curious what you're looking for the first hire. So let's say if we get into the history and the timeline, like if you think about the first 5 hires, what were you looking for and what was your approach of trying to get them on board?
Mentality can do attitude. The first thing, and I think the only one. I mean, even we learned this later. I mean, when the company is a bit bigger, then you have well-established processes, procedures and everything. Maybe you can hire different, I mean, like, I don't know, different business culture, right? Maybe it's a right word, because people, we are different, right? One person would like to work, like Saturday, Sunday, they don't care. Another person would like to come to the office 8 in the morning and close the office door 5 p.m., right? People are different. They have different, how to say, appetite, right?
Appetite, I like that.
For different things. What helped us, we were looking for the people who has really huge appetite, to risk, huge appetite to do, like do or die kind of the thing. It's maybe it's not a healthy thing, of course, for a regular healthy lifetime, because I mean you work a lot, it's a lot of stress, etc. But I mean, we haven't had cash, right? We couldn't hire really good specialists who has really, deep experience, and in general can be productive working like 8 hours per day. It's, as everything is okay here. But we don't have cash. So what can we do? We have employee stock option. We can offer to those girls and guys that, okay, help us. I mean, help the company. Let's put their maximum effort. We will give you a share of the company. I mean, so we can share that success, later. But I would say the core team were no lifers, hard workers.
No lifers. I love your analogies. It's very easy to visualize everything.
Yeah.
And where did you find those people? Like, what was your process? Have you been looking at the fresh graduates, or have you been just posting on LinkedIn? Like, how did you find them? Because it's a very specific type of person, right?
Lithuanica Sat 1 project really helped to build a pool of people. I was calculating, I mean, Lithuanica Sat 1 was built by around 300 people, which were involved. Maybe some of them were involved only for 1 week. Some of them were involved, for the entire lifespan of the project. But myself, I mean, I really like to interact with people. I really like to try to, find them and speak to them and, discuss about the style of the working, about, let's say, that business culture. I don't know if it's a right word, but I assume it's a business culture. But it is coming from the situation that, we have shortage of the resources. We cannot pay good salaries, so we have to have some other ways to return something for the effort, right? So, again, combination of employee stock option, space question by itself is very interesting and attractive for a lot of people who are dreamers, to build something. So I think NanoAvionics first years was built on those people who were attracted to Lithuania Sat 1 project, and they later turned into the employees, into founders, into investors at some point of NanoAvionics. But that helped a lot because it was public program. It was like crowdfunded program, so everybody comes working as a volunteer, right? We cannot pay them. We don't have money, so it means that the person has maximum motivation to be with this project, and they later turn into the co-founders of the company.
Very organic growth. I really like that. Thanks for sharing that insight.
It was very natural.
Next big milestone, 2018, AST and Science acquired a controlling interest in NanoAvionics. Why choose acquisition rather than just another funding round? Curious about your thinking.
In general, we still pre-revenue then. I mean, we're struggling to enter the market. The market is really harsh. Again, the guys like Space, like Clyde Space, they are there and they are strong and they're big, and the market by itself is not that big by then. We want to enter US market because US, in UAV world, in satellite world, it's a half of the world. I mean, 56% of the total market is within United States. How we can enter United States being, Europeans? I mean, it's a nightmare thing. I mean, they will not allow just simply like that to buy Lithuanian satellites, right? So we start to look for the opportunities, how we can enter those markets, and suddenly Abel sent us an email, owner of AST, a simple email. Hey guys, I'm looking for someone who builds small satellites and you look great. Can we speak? That's it. Like 2 lines, literally.
Those are the. How did they find you? How did he find you?
As he said later, I mean, like, Googling for some company at early stage, maybe pre-revenue with a good technology, which still needs some investments. AST is coming. They want to contribute. They want to help. They want to enter the market. It's not like a strategic investor. I mean, it's an active investor, right? AST, previously Global Eagle. I mean, they have a huge network. They have huge network. They have money. They have cash. I think it was one of the best things which happened to NanoAvionics. It helped us to enter the market, United States market, which is also a mystique thing, right? If you are not working from inside the US, and it's not an easy thing to enter that market. So yeah, it was also quite an interesting aspect, of the journey.
What was the competitive landscape during this period, and how did you differentiate yourselves? Because you tap into the American market, so there were a lot of players that could work against you. So I was curious, how were you putting yourself on the market?
What we offered for the market, we offered ourselves as being some kind of the Amazon of the CubeSats, right? Of these small sats. It wasn't only a product. It was launch logistics. It was logistics insurance, right? Like DHL, if they will lose your satellite, for instance. Integration with the payload, operation. So we offered full value chain for the customer. In other words, we offered end-to-end solution for the guys who want to launch their satellite into orbit. In vast majority of the cases, people who want to launch their satellite into orbit, they will probably have their own business idea, or it's a government, launching a satellite for other purposes. But it's a lot of VC stuff around space, right? It's a lot of VC kind of mentalities coming to the space business, where people are simply starting to do what they have to do. I mean, if they want to do some satellite connectivity business, it means that they don't want to have assembly integration infrastructure in their office to assemble the satellite plus the payload. They just want to buy the satellite. They want someone to
Off the
operate
shelf,
the
yeah.
satellite. That's it. They do business. They calculate the money. They calculate, return on investment. They calculate how much new customers they have gained, etc. So we were kind of riding on this kind of the changing mentality, changing paradigm through our end-to-end solution to the customer. So I would say that was the main differentiator. I mean, fundamentally nothing genius, right? Just full chain of the solution for the end customer. That's it. We start to think about the end customer, that they will not want to, integrate electric power system with plus flight computer. They will not want to do some vibration testing, qualification testing. We do it for them. They just bring the payload. Even in some cases, we organize the payload. They just bring the idea and money. That's it. We want this satellite to take this kind of images and multispectral, thermal, whatever. Do it for us. We give you cash. That's it. Let's negotiate a little bit. And we want an operational satellite in orbit. And even they don't want to think about the operations. They say, we need data. We need information. That's it. So the paradigm had started to shift around, 2017, 18, 19 towards now, where people are doing what they have to do, but not everything.
By 2021, it contributed to more than 120 missions, which is a huge number. What type of customers were you serving? Just for those that don't know.
I think the vast majority is huge startups, well-funded startups, which are building. We had period of IoT, Internet of Things, Zigfox, other stuff. Everybody's connecting their fridge at home with a satellite, and they have, information on their mobile phone. So we have a huge, I don't know, bubble maybe is not the right thing to say, but something like that. Yeah, trend around IoT. Okay, we have some difficulties in the market with IoT. Zigfox is struggling with their services, etc. Okay, we have new trend, Earth observation, multispectral, ecology, urbanistics, similar stuff. We have then, different kind of the trends, some fundamental research based on the new on the new space approach, where you can launch, more satellites but cheaper, etc. So through the different time of the period of the time, we have different driving factors which are driving the industry and which are driving the investors' money to be spent on the companies like ours who are offering end-to-end solution.
So let's get into one more huge milestone before we get into the acquisition, which came by the end of the whole journey, which was the global IoT project with more than 10 million euro funding in 2020, which was significant. And it was a consortium between yourself, CubeSat, Antwerp Space.
Yep.
How did this come together? How did you join together?
We were looking for some, certain aspects, how to enable further, let's say, advancement of the technology. What happens, right? Multispectral cameras, okay, IoT transmitters, receivers. In general, everything is going towards satellite as a huge generator of the data. I mean, big data, machine learning, all of those buzzwords. We also have some period in time where, everybody's speaking about the big data, meaning that we need to break through in some technologies, downloading that data and do some computations, and pre-processing on board the satellite. Meaning that we need some really new stuff. I mean, really new payload controllers, new flight computers, communication systems. And we kind of getting ready ourselves for the future. And we start to think what will be the next steps, what technology we have to prepare for the future customer. Yeah, and we came up with a GIoT program, Global IoT, and we start to build some enablers of these things. So, Antwerp Space, they're specializing in sophisticated communication systems. We have other partners there. We are building the platform, by ourselves. We no longer think about the CubeSats because it's a fundamental thing. We need large apertures of the antennas. We need large apertures of the solar panels. Physics is physics after all. I mean, you want to fly more powerful computer, meaning it means that you need to have more power on board. You need more volume on board. And, those CubeSats, I mean, 1 and 2 and 3 units, we discontinue them and we go towards, 12 unit, 16 unit, 6 unit is a minimum, the smallest platform we can do. We go to MP42, which is like 50 modification of 50, 150, and 250 kilogram platform. And the reason is, again, I mean, the physics requires more power, more volume, heat dissipation, thermal control, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's why that's how we came up with the idea of GIoT, where we build, some prototype platforms within this program. We build, communication systems, etc. Like, X-band, Ka, Ku band, really like exotically high frequencies, well above S-band or UHF.
Super interesting. And as KSAT, which is part of Kongsberg Group, was in the consortium, was it the moment where you got into a more intimate relationship with Kongsberg that led to acquisition, or is it just a coincidence?
I remember the day we met them. I think it was CubeSat symposium in San Francisco, like beginning of 22, I think. Yeah, like January or February. We are already into the process. We speak, with different companies. We're looking for the big brother because, AST is doing really strong by then investing into space mobile, right? I mean, they are a service provider. We help AST, of course, but in general, they do downstream. We will be continuing to do upstream. I mean, this is the business model, right, of NanoAvionics, and we're successful there. So we started to think maybe new investments for a big brother, which will acquire NanoAvionics, which is more downstream. Because, to align better strategy and, long-term vision, etc. So we start to look for the potential acquirer of NanoAvionics. And in general, I mean, that was, again, quite spontaneous. We met few guys from Kongsberg Group there in San Francisco. We say, hey, guys, you're not yet in our process. We're kind of looking for the investor. Would you like to jump in? They say, yeah, we would love to learn more. And suddenly, I mean, it was really, really quick. I mean, the guys who we met latest into the process, they go fastest and they make decision. That's it. We are getting married.
Okay, well, they acquired 77% of NanoAvionics for 65 million euros. So, super interesting story. What was it, by the way, seeing your company valued at that valuation after starting from a university project? Like, I mean, this was a big chunk of money, right?
I never thought that we will sell it. I never thought that we will do some kind of business. Just myself personally, I just wanted to be a simple guy, simple engineer who is kind of fulfilling himself in this, in this context. That's it. No business. I mean, I have no idea about the business. I have no idea what does it mean to sell the company at, in fact, 67 million valuation. No, I mean, I just do what I need to do. I just do
Simple.
what I like, what I love. That's it.
Okay, super nice. Okay, and you retain 23% of ownership and the management team stay in place. How important was this for the continuity of the company from then?
It's again when Big Brother coming like multi-billion group. Of course, there will be some transition. You have to help to with that transition. Of course, you have to spend some time. You have to help with transition. You have to set up some certain stuff. Accountability is different. Everything is different. So yeah, so we stay for some time and we finally had a full exit. I think more than a year ago already.
What was the hardest part about letting go of something you built from scratch, basically? Like, what was going on with your heart at this point?
We always had a mentality. Let's say, we don't dream, we don't calculate how much cash we're going to earn in like 5 years, right? But we know the fact that this is a legal body, right? This is a company. This is the thing which need to do business. I mean, if we run the company, it need to do business. It's selling the control package to some other, company is the best what you can do for this company today. You have to do it. I mean, there is no like feelings, anything. So time came to go with a big brother. We have a good deal, we have a good agreement. I mean, everything is there. We have a transition. That's it. We sell because this is the best for the company, right? We want to grow it further, but we cannot do it without external help. I mean, we need some consolidation. The market consolidates. I mean, it's a natural process. We make that decision. We don't have, any illusions, any kind of, like soft things. It's business. That's it. Where do I have feelings? So I have feelings, of course. I've been working with those guys with some of them for 15 years. And I kind of leave them, right? But I mean, it's a people, it's a family. It's not your colleagues. I mean, it's your family. So it's hard to leave the family. I mean, there are some feelings there, but you have to do that. You have to do that step because it's the best for the company. So
Thanks for so much for sharing this
yeah.
journey. It was amazing. And now the next organic step was to ask you what is next step for the tennis. And you already mentioned UDS, which we actually see behind you for the whole
Yeah.
episode. So explain what is UDS and what are you doing, guys?
Yeah. So I became an investor with some other guys, few other guys from NanoAvionics into this company. I don't know, time flies, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Actually, in fact, by then we don't have an idea that we are going to become a C-level again, active guys, working there. But it happened so. We have an exit, from NanoAvionics, what to do next. I mean, some of us were not that type of people who can retire or to take real long breaks. I mean, we need action, we need some stress, we need to be involved into some yeah. And firstly, we became an investors into Unmanned Defense Systems, like working at the board level, like advisory and then similar stuff. Finally, I think it's already a year when I am holding a CEO position here and I'm actively involved into these activities. And yeah, this is our new venture. We digging deep into defense business. It's really exciting, and it's a huge context here. Ukraine, we are Baltic states. We also have some defense related problems with the same neighbors who are invading Ukraine. It's a mission at the same time as business, investment processes, sales, new products, product philosophy, and again, we are getting involved into some fresh stuff. It's not an easy thing to restart, but well, I'm by the background, I'm an engineer, so I have SolidWorks on my laptop again. I'm doing the drawings again. We are a small company right now. It's like 15 people, so everybody doing everything. So it's interesting stuff. I mean, it's a new beginning.
Yeah, super fascinating. By the way, are you hiring or seeking any investors?
In fact, we are now in a new round. We can call it a round. We are working on a further expansion of the company. Investor wise, I mean, let's say we have some certain amount of possible investors, right? Starting with some, technology, deep tech guys in the civil market and finishing with maybe more specialized towards defense. What we're seeking for more towards defense, because, there are some certain things in the defense market. I mean, it requires some certain understanding of some processes and similar stuff. Some of the, well, I would say regular VC investor might be afraid of these things a bit because after all, it's a defense. I mean, in our product portfolio, we have like weapons, literally, which are carrying, warheads. Not only doing some reconnaissance, we do have software which is, tasking and doing some predictive analytics. We have all of the buzzwords like AI, like machine learning here again, computing, interesting stuff. So, the best thing, the perfect investor is the investor which know, software, hardware, which know defense, which understand and which is not afraid of the defense. I mean, the paradigm is in general shifting, right? The attitude towards defense at the European level is shifting, and we are no longer being afraid of miltech, right? But there are still some things, and the best thing, is then we speak with the investor and we speak about the command and control software. We speak about the loitering munition, and they have heard about it already. So it is much easier speaking with them, because if you speak with a like venture capital, which is coming maybe from space industry, or not maybe space, but from the high tech industry, it's a bit tricky to explain them that we're doing a UAV kamikaze, which is, carrying a warhead towards some main battle tank, and the intention is to kill that tank because it's invader tank. It's a different world, actually.
But I think it's very similar back to avionics, where you were selling hardware and tried to pitch hardware, which was new back then in Europe, right? Now it's defense, which I think, as you mentioned, that Europe is changing the way how it thinks. It all started in Ukraine and Baltics, I believe. So I think this is gonna be a new norm for sure in long term.
Years ago, ecosystem of the new space looked exactly the same. Thousands of the CubeSat manufacturers, better flight computer, better EPS, better ADCS, and stuff.
Interesting observation.
Yeah, but suddenly people realize that we need to build a constellation. In this world, we need to build a swarm. Swarm needs, mission control software in space, or, some ground control software. We employ, some analysis here, analytics. We want to predict our enemy. We want to predict, some other stuff. So paradigm is really, really similar as we have observed in the space market. I mean, we need an umbrella here. We need some systems which will join those different drones together in order to have a cohesion and in order to really operate in swarms. So this is what we're doing.
By the way, I will leave links in the description of this episode where you can, with one click, reach out to Vytenis for either hiring or investment, and just to make it super easy to get in touch with you. Awesome. And the last question is, I've prepared 4 quick fire round questions. I would love to hear your opinion here, just in a sentence or two. That would be amazing. Curious what you think here. How do you view Europe's position in the global space industry right now? And what do you think needs to change for Europe to be more competitive in this specific industry?
Too passive. That's it.
Good answer. Okay, next one. What is the most ridiculous investor question you have been asked?
Good question. But the answer is I'm really hurt when they say, okay, so you are just another one drone company. No. No. So I think, when we're being compared that we're another drone company, meaning that maybe investors haven't, well, of course, maybe our pitch was bad, right? Or investors just expecting something. So I think this is the most painful question. Yeah. Not the question.
Making quick conclusions.
Statement. Yeah.
Statements. Okay, yeah. Cool. Next one. What is something everybody gets wrong about the space industry?
It is heavily romantic view from the people. It's an industry. It's a technology. It's struggle. It follows the laws of economy. It's same thing as making a pizza. Pizza must be good. It must be, optimal price. You have to sell it. That's it. So this is a wrong perception that, space is easy and everything could be done from space. Yeah, this is my answer.
I never heard anybody compare pizza to space, but it works. It's a good analogy here.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last one. Once you mentioned that NanoAvionics has moved towards standardized platforms and new space 3.0. What did you mean by new space 3.0 back then?
I would say it was one of the last things I started to work on before I left. But again, I think when I left, it haven't been yet officially announced as the new space 3.0. The idea was to have a really standardized, platform. There are two aspects. Like in aviation, like in entire engineering, either you build a vehicle and then you accommodate the payload into the vehicle, or you build a payload and you have a payload and you build a vehicle around it. So New Space 3.0 is a stronger push towards that you have to accommodate payload into the vehicle, meaning that this is the only one way, in theory, to make that vehicle cheaper and to get rid of the customization. Otherwise, if the person is coming and bringing the payload to me, I need to build a vehicle around it. And in general, it becomes even more expensive than to build the payload itself. So it's a bit tricky thing. It's only two things. Either you build the vehicle and then accommodate the payload, or you have payload, and vice versa. So this was, about the standard vehicle, and people are having, well-defined interfaces, and they build their payload for that vehicle in order to make it economically viable.
This is something that is not practiced as yet, but I think if we get the industry into that more standardized phase, I think so many things could be so much cheaper, and the whole process could be much easier.
Exactly.
Very good thoughts. Yeah,
exactly.
super
But
cool.
it's not an easy task. It's not an easy
Yeah,
task,
definitely.
and a lot of companies are struggling, to make this happen in real life.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much for sharing your insights as well as the journey. If you have any last thoughts for engineers who have their own crazy ideas, would you have any last message to them?
Well, the last message, guys, there is an only one way to find out. Go for it, do your mistakes, and be ready for the mistakes. But fight until the end, until you've reached that. Only this is how you find out whether your idea was good or bad. I mean, you have to reach the end.
Awesome. Super. Thanks so much.